Doc, let me ask you this. Where was the homosexual transgender ideology planned and implemented? That's the question that comes up.
Yeah. Ground zero. Where was ground zero?
Yeah.
Slowly and insidiously.
Yeah, insidiously.
Definitely in the 60s with Woodstock, and definitely with the view of sex as just for pleasure, hedonism, and no longer about procreation. And that just opened the floodgates of people doing whatever they want to get that high of sexual release and orgasm. But politically, in the early 70s, a man named Frank Kameny is the one who started this group of trying to get the APA, the American Psychiatric Association, to change the definition of the DSM-3 to remove homosexuality as a disorder. And that was a slow, gradual process where they used a lot of a deception. One of them was they sent out a mailer on the letterhead of the American Psychiatric Association stating to all the members, which was like 25,000 at the time, the APA is thinking of reconsidering homosexuality as no longer being a disorder. What do you think? Should we do that? Yes or no? And already the way the question was phrased is it was saying that the leadership is already thinking about changing it.
Wow.
But the leadership never sent that letter out. They just took the letterhead and just put their own thing. And then all these people sent in their responses. Well, you guys are saying it's no longer, yeah, that's fine. And they all, like more than 50% said, yeah, we should change it. And they used that then to petition and to change the definition of homosexuality as a disorder in the DSM-4. And gradually it slowly moved with also a Robert Spitzer, a very big name in psychiatry who helped the LGBT forces to slowly move away from homosexuality as a mental disorder towards this gradual social acceptance. And he had a lot of pressure. In fact, towards the end of his life, he actually was trying to figure out, what have I done? And he did a telephone survey of those who were homosexual and tried to ask them, have you been involved in any kind of therapy to help with understanding the core origins of why you are same-sex attracted? And did that therapy help? A majority of those patients responded, yes, I have been helped. He presented that, and all the LGBT, they you're a traitor. What are you doing? They pressured him. Then he said, well, maybe they got pressured by me, and maybe they weren't really responding appropriately. So he changed his findings because people were pressuring him to say, that can't be right.
Incredible. Wow. Yes.
Yeah, there was a lot of political lobbying. There was a lot of intimidation.
Yeah.
And there was also just... I also did read that, they're using Marxist tactics against him. People were going in front of his house with signs and picketing and just intimidating him. I mean, how do you like to have 20, 30 people in front of your house calling you names with signs on the sidewalk and just intimidating you that you better change your position? So, yeah, this is the left doesn't play fair. And I think this is why Robert Spitzer, in part, this is why he caved in. Another question is one of the weapons that they use is the whole LGBT community. That's just kind of the big umbrella here. Is one of their weapons that they use is what I would call verbal engineering. They like to redefine sexual and gender terms, and they pour new meanings into these words. Is that one of their weapons?
Definitely. This is from the California Teachers Union.
Oh, my gosh.
They now have 5 genders. Gender nonconforming, ambigender, whose pronouns are they, them, and theirs. Agender, pronouns of ze, here, hears, and hereself. Gender fluid, pronouns are fluctuate. Questioning, gender in process or unrealized. On top of male and female. And so for a kid, they have these images of gender persons describing who you're attracted to, who you're romantically attracted to, what is your biological sex, what's your gender expression, what's your gender identity. They're just trying to figure out how to play hopscotch or multiplication tables. Who has time for this? It's just much more simpler than this. And they definitely hijack definitions, as Thomas Cesars, a very famous psychiatrist in our world, infamous psychiatrist. He said words or reality, and when you change the words, you change reality, you control the conversation, and that's just this is the way that they operate.
Doctor,
Yeah, Rush Limbaugh used to always say, "Words mean things," and he was one of the greatest communicators in our lifetime. And this is the power of words. They can build up or they can tear down.
and Dr. Bernard Nathanson, who got abortion approved throughout America, said exactly the same thing. They need to, genetically engineer words to mean different things. And so this is the same situation. Doc, what are the major cultural, social attitudes that gave us this idea that sex is for recreation and has nothing to do with procreation? So it's recreational sex. It seems like that's where it's so prevalent the last 40, 50 years.
Well, I think first the movement away from God, and thus the lack of an understanding that there is an absolute and objective reality, and there's a way to live.
Yeah.
And that is actually what Jesse was talking about earlier, is psychiatry and medicine devoid of God becomes hijacked and becomes whatever we want to define as illness, becomes whatever we want. Mm-hmm. And there's no longer an objective finding that we can then move towards. Because orthopedics, for example, is very simple. You see a broken arm. It's not supposed to be broken, but the bone's supposed to be one piece.
Yeah.
You fix it. But what is the mind that's unbroken? We no longer know that definition of normal anymore. And that becomes a huge issue of moving away from an understanding of how we should live, because there's no longer God involved in our lives. And then we have this situation where people just do whatever they want. And so sex, for example, becomes for procreation also just because hedonism, Epicureanism, following pleasure only, and no longer having to do consequential analysis of their actions. And that's where the one-night stands go, and the polyamory and the polygamy. So the lack of God is one thing that led to what we see nowadays. And then just general effeminacy, watching TV all the time, the sitcoms, Seinfeld and Friends, and no longer rosary praying, no longer reading the newspaper, no longer family games, no longer bonding of any kind of sort. It's just pleasure, avoidance of pain, avoidance of hardship, and no character formation, and that leads to, again, just seeking pleasure, and the culture we have nowadays of casual hookups and sex culture. Then of course, you have abortion and contraception, just making things easier for people to have no consequences to their actions.
Yeah. Wow.
Doctors, this whole notion, which is it's very American, as a result of the Hollywood media, it just basically, reprograms people on how to think and behave. But you'll see that the media, it trains people, especially men, to view people as sexual objects. And it's brainwashed many Americans to view the opposite sex as merely utilitarian sexual objects. I mean, Woodstock obviously played a part in this. You also have the whole hippie era, the whole free love movement. You also have probably the music genre already back in the 60s that started coming out that was a little bit edgy. But is that where we're at right now? Have we been trained or programmed to view each other not with biblical eyes as our brother and sister, my brother's keeper, but to look at people as sexual objects, and we have this utilitarian view? What can they do for me?
Definitely, you hit it right on the head there, Jesse. Sex sells. Consumerism.
Exactly.
No matter where you look. I mean, just driving here to the radio station, I saw billboards of just scantily clothed people, and just advertising for nightclubs, and it's just horrible.
Yeah.
And when you have this kind of situation where kids, for example, even they're being predisposed to these kind of, this is important for me to show certain parts of my body, or just like you mentioned, music, Malcolm Moore, Lady Gaga, all the different role models in Hollywood. They're just divorce, remarriage, girlfriend, boyfriend, back and forth. You have people like Ellen, I think her name was Ellen Page. Now she goes by Elliot Page, the actress who became transgender and got the surgeries.
Yeah.
All these different people who kids look up to, and these are the people that they want to follow, and it just programs them to think we are just our bodies. And again, you have no God anymore. So there's no more sense of eternity. There's no more sense of the soul. It's just whatever I want is whatever is right and whatever feels right. And that's what leads to this like these lifestyles of seeing people as just objects and just for pleasure.
Doc, let me jump in and just say, if people wanted to get in contact with you, I know you do Zoom counseling. We have lots of people looking for help. How can they contact you for that?
Metamorphic Psychiatry. So metamorphicpsych@gmail.com, 909-588-9275.
Got it. That's important.